Yo, what's up, DeFi Dad? How we doing?
Hey, Alan. Hey, nice to meet you officially. Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you, man. Thank you so much for joining us today. How you doing?
Good, good. I actually had a very dad day. I started off. I went golfing with my son in the morning for like early. We went about 6:30 here, and then I mowed the lawn after that. So I could be at consensus, but I am instead editing a podcast at home and doing some work. It's been a good Friday so far.
That's what we like to hear. You're actually living up to the name, man. A lot of people have, fake PFPs, fake names on here. Your name is DeFi Dad, and you actually are a dad who's in DeFi. So, you're no false advertising here.
Yeah. No, it is definitely my one true genuine self. So yeah, it's anyone out there too. I think who has kids probably identifies with that at this point. It's kind of dominates your whole life.
Hell yeah, man. Well, look, it's great. And look, we appreciate you being here. I know that, you're a busy guy. You've been in the space for a while. We got a ton of questions to ask you. So if it's okay with you, we can just dive in right in.
No, absolutely. Yeah, excited to talk through some of the questions you laid out here. So yeah, just whatever you want to talk through, let me know.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, right off the back, I saw you tweeted about your own experience using the Ethereum mainnet, regarding the gas fees. Are there any layer threes that, you see people heading toward in the future? And how do you kind of see people transacting on ETH down the road?
Yeah, this is a hard one. I truthfully am less aware of like what progress we're expecting to see in layer threes near term. But just funny enough, yesterday, the Lens protocol posted about what looks like one of the earliest layer three scalability like solutions. And so when you think about Web3 social media, whatever that is. If you've ever tried LensTube, go to lenstube.xyz or just go to lens.xyz. Uh, whatever benefits you see in Web3 social media in terms of owning more of your own content, ideally transacting on solutions that are community owned versus something that's like centrally owned. Uh, One of the challenges here is just that there's a lot of shit that happens in social media. And so, in order for that to happen on chain, or I guess whatever needs to actually happen on chain that can't happen off chain, um, it's just a lot. It causes a lot of network congestion. So currently, Lens has a little over 100,000, I think 100 like 20,000 users. Let me just double check here. But Lens has an issue, which is that it can't continue to onboard new users because the solutions just don't work at this point. It doesn't scale, and I believe as far as I know, and this was quite a while back, but uh, Lens was eating up so much of the Polygon network that Polygon was actually having its own issues from this. And so this brings us to, I think the conclusion that we need better scaling solutions. One of those is what's called layer three. And yeah, I think with a layer three, the way you can think about it is if you understand what layer twos are doing in terms of allowing us to transact faster and cheaper, uh, this is just adding literally another layer on top of that and being able to further uh, streamline. I'm trying to like dumb this down as much as I can. It's going to allow us to just continue to do more of what we would do in Web 2 media, but in Web 3 social media. So, anyways, yeah, that's the one layer three that I'm keeping my eye on. Lens, if you go to the Lens Twitter account, they just tweeted about this. It's called Bonsai, Bonsai.
Bro, we're 5 minutes in. You're already giving us alpha. This is what I'm talking about here. Why we like having DeFi Dad on the show because we're 5 minutes in. You're already spitting facts that I'm not even too aware of. So I'm curious. Also, like just building on that. We're already seeing layer threes. Are we going to see layer fours, layer fives, layer sixes? Like how many layers are we going to see here?
Man, that's tough. I guess I would assume that we'll continue to see like additional scaling solutions. I I have I have never fully understood like why we define certain scaling solutions within like the architecture of what might be called Ethereum mainnet versus what we're now calling layer twos. I do know that I think the thing that we should all keep our eye on right now is we're still really early on in this next evolution of Ethereum layer twos, and so like anyone who's transacted here on Arbitrum or Optimism, uh, it's made a world of difference for us to be able to basically do really powerful sorts of things in DeFi or other Web3 applications, but be able to pay very little gas. And actually, I think the tweet you had mentioned there before, I think I spent like $1,000 in gas transacting on Ethereum mainnet over the last few weeks. These were different applications that require lots of leverage and looping, and so I enjoy that. But like anyone else, I think it pains me to spend ETH on gas because I'm looking at that ether and I'm going, I just spent $1,000 on gas. Now, what's the likelihood that ether goes to $10,000 in the next few years? I think it's pretty high. So I'm going, great. I spent 1,000. Technically, ETH's around like 2,000. So like, I'm already thinking ahead. Like I blew that much more money in terms of US dollars. So I am really enjoying using Arbitrum and Optimism, and the newest one is ZK Sync. ZK Sync Era is still really new. I would caution anyone to be really careful because it's very wild west. It's just like Ethereum mainnet. No one has to ask permission to build there. So there's probably going to be lots of scams or rug pulls like there's been on Arbitrum and Optimism previously. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what's the point of DeFi if you can't allow someone to be able to have access to the same sorts of opportunities and to be able to transact cheaply? That's the part of it that I'm most excited for now that we've got these layer twos live. It was very painful in the last bull run to I would be in the Zapper Discord at the time. This was when I was working at Zapper, and you'd have users who desperately wanted to know how to use DeFi and would kind of come to us as a general customer support, and I would have to look at them and say, based on the amount of money you mentioned that you're going to transact with, I would caution you to enter these different like lending opportunities or leveraged yield farming, whatever it was, because the amount of gas they would spend would make it next to impossible for them to be profitable using DeFi. So that's been I think the huge accomplishment here in 2023 is that we're at a place now where you can use almost anything on Arbitrum, Optimism, and now ZK Sync Era, and know that you're likely to pay as much as maybe a few dollars, US dollars, in terms of ETH. And like I said, that's cool because that I think is the point of DeFi, is to make it accessible.
100%, man. I mean, especially in countries that are not first world countries, right? Like that gas fee can be a little bit ridiculous. So that's definitely a problem in moving forward for ETH.
That's right. That's right. Otherwise, it's just an elitist thing. Like now we're talking about democratizing finance for all, but really we've created like an uglier Frankenstein than the legacy system. It's like there's all the benefits there of speed and permissionlessness in most cases, trustlessness, definitely. But if you have to have a minimum amount, or you have to possess the ability to spend $100 to transact, I mean that is clearly not the future that we're all building towards. So I think I've continually said the last few years, you got to be patient. It's great to get excited about this, but I find myself at times like getting into especially like looping related applications. I recently tried one called Metronome Smart Farming. That one allows you to basically loop and create a leveraged stablecoin position with Frax, and then the collateral is like a yield earning form of Frax. You can do this with liquid staked versions of ETH as well. Hey, the yields look great, but to get into that position, it costs a lot of gas, sometimes on the order of hundreds of dollars of gas. So you have to ask yourself, how much am I putting in? How long will I be in this? How long might the yield last? So what's the average amount of yield I might earn over that time frame? Okay, is that more or less than the amount of gas that I'm about to hit on MetaMask or Frame or whatever wallet you use? And I truly do find myself at times like declining transactions last minute, realizing, what am I doing? Like this, I can wait on this. I might as well just continue to monitor this farm and see if the yield holds up. And if it holds up, let's say another week, maybe that's proof to me that this is a more sustainable yield. Or you can go to, actually a great place is go to DeFi Llama, click on the yield tab, and there's one of the attributes that you can check off to filter. You can check off, oh my gosh, what is that called? It's like, it indicates that it's like stable, I think. Stable, I think, is the term that they use. And so I don't know exactly how they calculate that or how they decide that, but being able to look up yields that, oh, there it is, stable outlook. If you go to attribute on defilama.com/yields, under the attribute it says stable outlook, that will eliminate a lot of different farms that are based off of highly inflated like token rewards. And so that'll save you some trouble.
We appreciate the alpha. Like, you're a true Degen. We're trying to onboard people into the space, trying to help people figure out what the next steps are. So I think this conversations like this, like, they really do help a lot. You even have educator in your bio. Living up to the name again. So we like to hear. I do kind of want to ask you. We got a lot of questions because you just have so many different areas of expertise here. I know you're involved with the Defiant as well. That's a publication that is read throughout our entire industry. How did you kind of get involved with them, and what are your thoughts on like mainstream crypto and DeFi coverage? They seem the journalistic integrity might not always be there.
Yeah, good question. So I think the Defiant is a good example of like being really friendly to your peers in the space and offering ways to add value, like when you're getting started. So back in 2019, I was organizing the Ethereal conference I was at Consensus. And this was my first Ethereal conference, but I had attended it previously. And so I knew it was like a killer gathering to bring lots of like-minded people who were pretty early to Ethereum. It's 2019. I felt kind of late to the space, but now looking back, obviously it was very early. And I was looking for moderators. I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was someone probably in PR on the Consensus team who said, you should talk to Camilla or Cami Russo, who at the time, I think she was at Bloomberg, but was rumored to be writing a book about Ethereum or planned to write one eventually. And I had her as a moderator. Kind of realized too that we were, I think Cami and I are pretty close in age. Cami actually just had a baby too, which is lovely for her and her husband. And so I remember as 2019 wore on, I was starting to post tweets about using DeFi. I was kind of starting to define this like brand as DeFi Dad. And then I think probably by the end of the year, I stayed really close, just like, hey, if I can ever help in any sort of way, no strings attached. That's the caveat that I think has always gotten me lots more access in this space is I don't look to sign consulting agreements on day one with someone. I look to try to help people. And if you continually help people at some point or another, if you are doing a great job, people will look for ways to pay you, whether it's, bringing you in as an angel investor, which, obviously requires you still to put up capital. But Cami wanted to cover more DeFi tutorials, and I was starting to create tutorials. And I remember thinking like, this is the most obvious thing in the world. Why would I not want to write in this? I know who Cami is. I know her integrity. I know that she's building a following. If I contribute to this and it does well, the Defiant itself is going to grow the space. So I'll see a return in ETH. Like I'm holding ETH. I wasn't invested in any DeFi protocols at the time because there were no tokens yet really in DeFi beyond maybe, yeah, I don't know. At that point, I mean, everything was still being built and developed in 2019. And I don't know how long I did it that way, but now obviously Cami is a good friend. I write this DeFi Alpha guide every Friday with others at the Defiant, and I do that as a journalistic role in my world. Like, you know, I'm an investor full time at Fourth Revolution Capital. I obviously make educational type interviews and tutorials as like a public good. And I am very grateful still to this day. Like my thinking hasn't changed. It is an absolute privilege to get to write in the Defiant every Friday, to get to highlight things that interest me, that I think objectively other people should learn about. So we've written that now like 70 weeks in a row. And this, you know, going back further, I had written like one-off types of articles. And so, yeah, I think to address your question about crypto outlets in terms of like what integrity they bring to this space, I'm probably more optimistic on many of them. I have a lot of respect for the likes of CoinDesk. I think that I know CoinDesk gets shit at times from different from different folks, but I used to know one of the editors there, Zach Seward, he's moved on to he's working somewhere else now. He was actually someone I went to college with. Him and gosh, I'm forgetting Brady. I think it's Brady Dale, who's moved on himself as well. But they've just had lots of good people there. They went through a time where I think that CoinDesk and other crypto news outlets like Cointelegraph, they went through a really rough time during the bear market. Like, and this was back in 2018, 2019. So like the whole industry, there was suddenly this exit of interest. You know, people were basically just done with crypto. They thought it was dead at the time. And so like traditional media outlets, they had to think, how are we going to retain attention? How do we continue to, of course, retain enough attention to be able to sell advertisements and sponsorships and so on? So I really like empathize with what a challenge that was. I think today, I can't speak to all the other outlets. Actually, I will say I really admire Frank at The Block. I think he does a great job. And despite what they went through with the debacle over, there was someone there who I think got like an apartment or condo bought by Sam Bankman-Fried, and he's moved on since then. Despite what issues they went through with some compromised leadership there, I think Frank and the core team are really solid. And I'll just say that what's wild to me is at the end of 2022, you have CoinDesk, who's breaking the news about basically the fact that FTX, you know, really has a pathetic asset sheet, and you have this like sort of revelation which literally brings down FTX and sort of reveals like the Ponzi that they've been running, and that has a direct impact on CoinDesk itself because of the fact that they're owned by DCG. And I just think it shouldn't be overlooked what sort of integrity it took for that team to want to reveal the truth, you know, investigate further. They could have very easily buried that. You know, obviously that would be very corrupt and I think dishonest, but we shouldn't overlook granting them credit for what they did. And so, yeah, I'm pretty like impressed continually by the likes of CoinDesk. I think that consensus event, I wish I could have been there. I was supposed to speak and couldn't do it because my daughter has a ballet recital, and I'm pretty sure she will end up in therapy one day if I don't show up to this because she's She's only 4. So, so that, anyways, that's why I couldn't go to that. But anyways, yeah, that's my sort of rambling on crypto media. And
Yeah.
I think if you can become a subject matter expert of DeFi, Web3, whatever, it is possible that you could eventually, report at one of these outlets. Like, we're still very early, and I know the Defiant's always looking for, new and emerging experts. But
Blockworks is looking for 2 podcast hosts right now.
oh, Blockworks is another one. Oh God, I love Blockworks.
I know, me too.
They do such a good job. Yeah, that Empire podcast is really fun,
Yeah.
and I've listened to a few of these 1000X. There's only like 2 of those episodes. Yeah, they do a great job.
Yeah.
So yeah, kudos to them as well.
I've got to agree with you, by the way, DeFi Dad. I mean, I think like, I used to work in media and entertainment back in the day. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is that, the publishers need content, right? They need to drive audience. Audience drives revenue. And I think a lot of times there's just this narrative or notion that they're, not reporting the truth or they're shilling. And I think a lot of times people don't put enough onus and I would say even criticism on the companies that are, putting out these press releases and bringing them to these, media outlets. So I think like, one of the things I always talk about is just this notion of twisted truths, like dig into things further, do your own research, because, and at the end of the day, I think companies just need to be ethical and honest about their updates. It's like if something's in pre-alpha phase, if something's in white paper development phase, like don't say it's coming to mainnet, tomorrow. So I think like at the end of the day, I think it's important to really respect these folks, because I agree with you. I think they're doing quite a service for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I would put a cap on it with, people should take responsibility, accountability for their own thinking. And as long as these outlets are not like misreporting or like intentionally telling a lie, I mean, isn't it on everyone to be an adult? I mean, this is kind of like, there's a grander conversation about this. This is the problem with society, is people don't want to take accountability for their own decisions. They don't want to work at, like, I'm not speaking to any specific group here, but there are lots of people. I'll speak to the bubble of the United States living here. There are just so many people who are like, oh, I went to college, I got a degree, and nothing's worked out for me. And I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, you didn't differentiate yourself. You did the same degree as everyone else. You got out, you look like everyone else on paper now. You have not developed the same sorts of selling skills, the same sorts of analytical skills. So like, why would you have outlier results doing the same old shit? And this for me comes from, I think, like, there's a chip on my shoulder with, for years, I can't tell you how many people in my community, whether it's like family, friends, who were like, oh, this crypto thing's so dumb. Why are you guys doing this? This doesn't make any sense. Why? God, you're starting your career over again with this. Why don't you just go use that degree that you got in school? Like, what? And I'm on the other end, like a lifelong learner, continually interested in new and interesting sorts of topics, digging in, self-learning all of this. And I don't feel any, sort of remorse now for some of them that are like, wow, like, yeah, the crypto thing, it really like worked out. Or actually, now we're back in a bear market. So actually, I have some of those people saying, oh man, do you think crypto's going to survive this time? I'm like, this is the 3rd cycle we've been through where you're asking me this, and you're asking me whether you think it's going to survive. Why would I be working on something that I think is not going to survive? Why won't you just like accept the fact that this thing works and there is product market fit, at least for a part of the world? I don't know if DeFi like truly becomes the default finance system for everyone in the world someday. Obviously, that's a hope for many of us, that more and more people gain access to it. But at this point, like, it doesn't have to serve everyone on the planet. Like, Coca-Cola is not drank by every single person on the planet. That doesn't mean that it is a failure. Like, this is a thing that provides value to a specific set group of people. So just accept it's here to stay, and get excited, because there's a lot of new innovations obviously coming here in terms of DeFi in this year and in the coming years.
Yeah, I mean, well said, sir. And you kind of talked about an exit of interest that does kind of happen with the cyclical markets that we're in. Like, how much damage do you think something like FTX has done to the normal person? Because whenever I talk about crypto, whenever I tell them that this is working, the first thing that they say is FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. So.
Yeah, I think that the part of our industry that it's hurt the most is probably credibility with those who are somewhat rooting against us already. This is a regulator who, doesn't want to see crypto continue to onboard new folks. This is Elizabeth Warren. I mean, like I live in Massachusetts, so I have to put up with her as a senator, even though she's actually a very smart person and very talented in other ways. But for whatever reason, she's like chosen crypto as the thing that she's to blame all of society on now. And so, yeah, I think we're at a place where I think that FTX for me is actually like a somewhat of like a dead issue. I never hear news about Sam Bankman-Fried anymore. It's wonderful. It's great to no longer hear news about him. What's weird though is that he was lifted up as a prophet. Previously he was definitely like kind of like the face of the industry for a short time there. And I think to be fair, to not just, pretend like, oh, the haters that hate us, they're using this unfairly against us. This should be a lesson for all of us. Don't talk about the decentralization of crypto being, a part of what defines us, but then look to these single figures, these like, in this case, like I'm going to call him some sort of like founder influencer, whatever he was. He had a big name. Everybody knew who he was. He knew how to play the game to get in front of Congress and how to get in front of regulators. And he knew how to get in front of Gary Gensler, which is one of the wildest things in the world. Gary Gensler had a lot of meetings with SBF, but for whatever reason, he has a closed mind to the gold standard in terms of builders and gold standard in terms of trying to build within the very fuzzy regulations of crypto in the United States, which is Coinbase. So, yeah, I think that I think that at this point, we need to not repeat the mistakes of last cycle, this coming cycle. When we have a crazy sort of bull cycle, this means as an individual, when you have family and friends who are like, oh, like, should I buy this Pepe token? You should warn them of like what as a crypto pro, that the fully diluted valuation is absurd and that it is truly a meme coin and it could go up, but like no one actually knows. So, warn them of the risks that you've seen with other tokens. I had family members in November 2021 who were putting in, I wouldn't say like meaningful amounts of money, but enough to, clearly be a little bit upset. They were buying some Dogecoin. And I remember, that was the top of the market, obviously. So really buying anything at the time was a big mistake, but I couldn't have done anything to convince them to not buy Doge at that point. However, I didn't succumb to I think playing to the whims of someone who's new to the space. I warned them like, hey, normally when something's being talked about this much, it's probably about to hit the top of that cycle. And so, if you make some money off of it, great. But like BT dubs, if you buy that, where are you going to sell it? And I tried to, talk more to family members about things like Ether and like, hey, what if you buy something long term and you dollar cost average into it and then you passively earn additional yield on it over the long term? Like, these are things that have proven themselves to work for a larger group of us in crypto over the long term. So anyways, I feel like I'm just rambling about this, but
Nah, man, we're being a sponge, man. I'm telling you, I'm absorbing the words that you're saying. You know, it's good to hear from somebody who's been in space for as long as you have. Your perspective on these, and I do kind of have a couple questions about shit coins and Pepe and whatnot. So
Absolutely.
shitcoin season was in full bloom this April. We flirted with euphoria. Generational wealth was won and lost. Were you trading any shitcoins? And you kind of went into a little bit, but is there any additional advice you give to people who want to navigate like this phase of the market? Because we will probably see this again sometime down the road.
Okay, so I have been fortunate, given that I was actually tweeting about this earlier today. I'm at a place in my career where my goal is to continually accumulate like the most premier assets, and like one of those like is obviously Ether. And there are other tokens that I'm bullish on. There's a few that I've bought from the open market, but at this point, being in crypto about 6 years, working full time at a fund for Fourth Revolution Capital for about 2 years, and it's crazy to say, I think I've actively been an angel investor about 3 years. So, I still feel really new to this, to the world of investing. And so I'm sticking to my guns about knowing what I know as a power user and trying to use that as some edge against, the rest of the space to uncover like what's the next great app. And so I truthfully kind of stay away from trading the more volatile types of shit coins like a Pepe token. But God, I totally understand why people do it, because it's fun. And I don't understand why we look down upon those who want to trade tokens like that, especially if you know how to manage your position size, if you know how to, as a trader, be able to minimize whatever your losses if you're wrong about the trade that you're making. Like, I don't know why people judge that. Other people play the lotto, they ape into God knows what in the stock market. And for whatever reason, crypto continues to sort of be judged for similar sorts of like gambling. Now, that said, I will point out that if I do, which like I'll give an example, Arbitrum. I don't think that Arbitrum is a shitcoin at all. I think it's a very premier token. I earned some ARB from the Arbitrum airdrop, which was a nice surprise because, like, again, I'm a happy user of Arbitrum, so it was just kind of like icing on the cake. Now, that's a token that's a little more volatile still, even though it's like actually very liquid. And so I love the fact that I can trade it on Arbitrum decentralized leverage trading platforms. That's the thing that's so exciting to me. Is years ago, I never used BitMEX. I did use Bybit at some point, but like there's an excitement there. Like I know folks who most of their portfolio is just holding something like Bitcoin or ETH long term and other tokens, but then obviously they've got a trading account. Well, I had an immense distrust of centralized exchanges going back to the last bear market because I saw a bunch of them fail. I felt kind of lucky that I just wasn't exposed to them. Well, now, even though there's risk to using decentralized leverage trading like GMX, like Gains Networks, G-Trade, both of which happen to be on Arbitrum. There's Polynomial and Quenta on Optimism, which actually source liquidity from synthetics. It's just mind-blowing to me that you can go in and now just be brave enough to connect your wallet and trade with, in the case of G-Trade, you get up to about 150x leverage. Not that I'm ever trading with that, but it's a fun marketing number. It's a number that they can market to folks to demonstrate the type of access you have. And so yeah, it's a world of difference from many years ago. You could do almost nothing other than trade on centralized exchanges or maybe send a little bit of a token on chain from one self-custody wallet to another. But now we're at a place where you've got GMX has done some outrageous numbers. Gains has actually eclipsed those on a few days, even though it definitely pales in comparison to the volume that GMX is doing. And I think optimism is really starting to build up steam in terms of their like sort of degen community of DeFi users and traders. So, at the end of the day, people like to gamble. They like to trade. I see them as two different things here. But if you want to call trading gambling, let adults do what they want with their money. And I mean, what's the big deal? Like, if someone wants to lose it all on something, let them do that. I think it's ridiculous to have this sort of nanny state saying, well, you all can't have access to that because like you could potentially hurt yourself. And like, meanwhile, the US government or not the US government, but the Fed just continues to do fuck all by printing money and then, raising interest rates and trying to be an oracle and ultimately be wrong about so much of what they're doing. So anyways.
Yeah, man, George Washington is turning over in his grave right now. I can tell you that with what the fuck's going on in this country. But I do kind of want to ask you, like, along this subject, the attack on crypto by the U.S. government has been pushed by a lot of different companies to consider offshoring their options or operations as well. Are you kind of worried the U.S. has already done permanent damage to the crypto innovation, and do you kind of see a world where the U.S. becomes, very falling behind, and like other countries will kind of overlap us here?
I think we might be underestimating what opportunity others see in creating more friendly regulation for crypto. So there's a number of folks in the U.S. Congress. I think Representative Tom Emmer is one of them, who's incredibly articulate and like knowledgeable about what is crypto, what is decentralization. Like, he like really understands what the real crypto is. All it takes is a few people like that to continue to sort of evangelize and educate others. And I'm still optimistic that many in Congress will realize, many of the regulators as well will realize that this is the largest wealth creation event since the dawn of the internet. There's a lot of opportunity. You don't want to push you don't want to push the most talented founders who are going to create net new value. You don't want to push them all off shores. What's hard to not grapple with, though, is that, I mean, crypto is something that sort of unites everyone in the world. Like, I don't think about what country an application is in when I access it on Ethereum or on Arbitrum or Optimism. It all kind of like blends the world into one place. And that is definitely part of the reason that the US government and other governments feel threatened by it. It makes the borders and the rules, the laws that we all follow, it makes it all sort of blend together. And that does not allow a government to continue to hold the power that it once held. And so I think that crypto is a clear extension of the chaos that the internet has brought on. The internet took us from, if you go back to, I was a kid mostly in the 90s. In the 90s, there were only so many news networks. And even at that time, we marveled at the fact that suddenly we had like a 24-hour news network like a CNN. Well, you go back further, you go back even more decades, and you only had like the few major news networks like ABC, CBS, NBC in the United States. And so there was a uniformity to messaging, and there was clearly a uniformity to the way that people consumed news in the United States and the rest of the world. So anyways, you fast forward to the internet, and the internet suddenly makes it possible for someone like me to become, a self-described investor and to start to create videos about how to use DeFi and to suddenly create a podcast. And this has obviously changed the world. And so it makes sense that we should see that happen with our money as well, that the controls on our money would start to fade. What I will say, if any U.S. regulators or folks in Congress ever hear me speak, I don't think enough understand that there is an immense dependency in DeFi on the US dollar. stable coins are still married to the US dollar. And so there's a huge opportunity there if you want to reinforce the dominance of the US dollar, which isn't my goal, but if that's your goal, stable coins are doing a hell of a job of making us even more reliant on the value of the US dollar, except now we have the ease and ability to move that cross border, which again is not something that I think the more traditional folks want to see happen, but it's the next evolution of money, just like the internet has been that for media and so much else of what we do in the world.
Yeah, DeFi Dad, one thing I want to add, I think I pretty much agree with everything that you're saying here. A lot of folks, I'm sure even in the audience, are always like, one person can't make a difference, one person can't change the world. I mean, the story that I've heard multiple times now is that Tom's, onboarding was via an intern that was working for him that was super interested in crypto, exposed it to him. He's an intellectually curious individual, like pretty much all of us. And now he's trying to make a difference. So I think like everyone that's out there, just don't underestimate the ability that one person has to actually make a really meaningful impact in this entire industry.
Totally. I learned about crypto because I had a coworker who was a good friend of mine, and I was in a very traditional sort of B2B software type of job, and he was thankfully very adamant, like, hey man, like I really think you should check this out. And I still remember him saying, like, you should learn about Ethereum. And I was like, what the hell did you just say? What is the word that you just said? It sounds like an element. I actually have a chemistry background, and I was like, sorry, did you just say an element? And he showed me a video of Vitalik, who I think in the video, Vitalik was probably under 20 years old at the time. It was like an old video of him explaining it. And that just, that one person, I mean, that's a huge fork in my life. Like, I mean, it's mind blowing for me to consider, like, what if I just said, nah, that's okay. It's fine. Like, that would have probably been the second or third time in my life too that I had denied learning about cryptocurrencies. I definitely had others who were like, you should learn about Bitcoin. And I was like, I don't even have time for this. I'm, working on this and that. So anyways, to Andrew's point, just, it's really, I think it's really short-sighted for anyone to underestimate like what you can do as an individual. And actually what's cool about the crypto community is that it still has its home base on Twitter, despite whatever you want to say about centralized social media, blah, blah, blah. As much as I'm invested in Web3 social media, Twitter has been an incredible platform, and, on its best days has thankfully hosted conversations that might have been censored elsewhere. So, it's, yeah, anyways, it's a community that's very accessible, and I would encourage anyone, like, hop in a Discord, hop into the Hashflow Discord, hop into, Arbitrum's Discord or ZK Syncs or whatever. Like, you'll learn a lot. But this is still a space that does require a self-learning prototype, like a self-learning sort of profile to be able to make it. And I think that has personally been something that has kept me very motivated to just continue to put out content. I think that, at the end of the day, we have to make it easier for people to get access to that information. And actually, we have definitely accomplished that. I mean, look at all the crypto media out there. Not that I deserve credit for that, but, we as a space have really created all of this very accessible media through lots of different personalities in all sorts of different languages. Like, it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the impact one person can have. Sometimes it can be a negative impact, right? Like, we have our friend Gary Gensler, who's taking charge of things over in DC. I kind of want to ask you. There's been some discussion about Hester Pierce potentially becoming the new chair of the SEC. Is this the kind of person that you want to see in charge? And do you kind of have some other names that might be at the top of your list?
Yeah, Hester Pierce is at the top of my list, and I have to say I haven't listened to her as often. Like, I've listened to her in a number of podcasts. The thing I like about her is that, I think she's intellectually honest. I think that she's grappled with these ideas. I want someone who is a nerd and digs into these details and has an open mind and has an honest conversation about it. The problem with Gary Gensler is he is not having honest conversations. He is not asking for input. He does it at a very like minimalist professional level because that's a part of the job. It's a part of the facade. But like, make no mistake, that guy is a complete egomaniac. He releases videos of himself calling it office hours, and these videos are so just narcissistic. It's him just wanting to have his face out there, to be, more known for his own accomplishments, which his accomplishments, in my opinion, are nil. The guy continues to uncover the most like the least impactful sorts of things in the space, but yet he will not provide the obvious clarity that is needed around Ether, which is the most liquid, second most popular, if you want to call it that, cryptocurrency in the world. I have tried to explain this to family members as this is someone who's going around issuing speeding tickets, but no one knows what the speeding law is. He just says, well, make sure you follow the laws and that you drive safely. And you're like, well, what does that mean to drive safely? And he's like, I don't know, but if you do what we don't like, actually, he won't even give that sort of clarity. He should be fired. I don't know what it takes to get him out of office, but it is, oh my God, it's just like beyond insulting how incompetent he is. And he's a smart guy too. He's a very intelligent person. He is capable. He is actively refusing to do his job. But because the benchmark has been set so fucking low in this space, it's been set so low by the incompetence of so many working in government, despite all the talented, competent people that we do have working there. And this is where we're at. We're at a place where Coinbase, who has been the gold standard in terms of trying to work within whatever minimal amount of feedback they've gotten in terms of regulation around crypto, it has been painful to watch Coinbase over the years do this too. I want to point out that like Binance and others have been able to do a lot more of what they wanted. FTX was a great example. They were able to just basically do whatever they wanted when they were headquartered. I think it was in Hong Kong for some time. So now you have this like Boy Scout, Brian Armstrong, who is just doing everything in his power to try to play by the rules. And then they issue them a Wells notice. What is the matter with these people? I mean, it is just like beyond insulting to all of our intelligence. And again, he's holding them hostage for not being able to do his job. He's not doing his job defining, that in this case, like I think Ether clearly is not a security. Like there's been multiple papers written up about this. I mean, we're at a point where Coinbase is having to actually sue the SEC, I guess, to try to get some clarity. Like, what is this? What sort of like broken system is this? We're not asking them to basically give like a blanket favorable statement to like every cryptocurrency, but instead of just doing what's obvious, they're leaving it all in limbo, and they're holding entrepreneurs hostage. I can't tell you how many founders I've met who are like, there's so many founders who actually look up to Brian Armstrong and are like, I'm going to build this in the United States. I'm optimistic that we will have clarity. A number of those founders have already been burned by this, and there's a whole new class of founders who are like, you know what? No, I'm hopeful. I see what's going on here with what Coinbase is doing, and Gary Gensler can't be in that position forever. So I'm like beyond words with it. It's just such bullshit, and he's he's such a terrible person for what he's done to this space. Like, and he's a professor at MIT. MIT, if you're listening, what are you doing? You have this idiot as a professor. He doesn't know how to use any DeFi. I live in the Boston area. I'd be happy to come into MIT and teach classes about DeFi instead of this like joker who basically enriched himself by working at Goldman Sachs during an era where he probably himself has committed some sort of crime while working there at Goldman Sachs. Anyways, I could go on forever.
Hey man, that is fucking great. Anytime you want to, talk shit about Gary Gensler, we'll host you anytime, bro. You want to come in here, you let me know 5 minutes before, be like, hey, I'm feeling some type of way. Like, let's go turn around Gary Gensler.
Yeah.
But I also kind of want to ask you here, about CBDCs, right? Like, they're starting to creep into society. Like, how big and influential do you think these can get? And do you think that the potential for the government to have even more control over our money has never?
That's one of the biggest dangers that we face in the coming years. A CBDC means that now every transaction you make is monitored. It means that your money, like at this point, if you hold US dollars, I'm not one to like want to transact with cash, but for those who do, there is a privacy to it that they've inherited that, I think people have, not fully appreciated over the years. Well, if we end up with a CBDC, I mean, what it is. It's a Frankenstein crypto. I mean, it is the ultimate shit coin. It is not the money that we've all enjoyed, having the freedom to transact with at least US dollars. And so I've heard people say, well, they can freeze your bank account. And I'm like, yeah, but that's because you put it into the bank and now you have technically an IOU from the bank. This is the sort of thing that's really going to hurt. I think it ultimately hurts, everyone, but I think it really can hurt like the average, person, the average family, who like you have to consider that. I wish I had some flashy stats to discuss this, but I know, having grown up in middle America, I know, having grown up, where like people on average, like a good income was maybe like $50,000 a year. Growing up, $100,000 a year to me was like, you were rich. These people pay their taxes and they follow every rule. These are the people that made up at least the middle class of the United States when I was growing up. These are not the people who find ways to circumvent tax law. And I'm telling you that the idea that that the government could potentially freeze your digital cash or withdraw it to say, hey, you owe us more taxes. You're not going to be, you didn't pay your bill on time, whatever. It just introduces a risk of all sorts of different dystopian situations. And, I think that a CBDC isn't needed because of the fact that we have reliable cryptocurrencies now, especially stable coins. The breakthrough for us with stable coins was that most of us didn't want to transact with like an Ether or Bitcoin. The idea was that you want to hold those because you think that those might accrue value over time. So stable coins have allowed us to continue to transact with a medium of exchange that is very familiar. And we're still early on in stable coins. Like, a stable coin doesn't have to be pegged to the US dollar. It can be pegged to the euro or any other currency in the world. And so if you want digital cash has to exist on a community-owned, decentralized, uncensorable network, verified through cryptography. If we just use this, this ledger that is ultimately controlled by, a very powerful authoritarian, in this case, I'll say like the US government, that doesn't really solve anything. It just further limits the freedom of people to spend money on what they want. So I think this is something that will be a big issue in coming elections, and it's going to be on us as a crypto experts to speak out against this, to let folks know, like, no, this is not the future. This is not adopting crypto. This is them just using a technology to their advantage, and now creating, again, a money that is monitored and controlled by a very small group of powerful people. So yeah.
Sounds pretty Orwellian to me, man. You know, when you start threatening the freedom to transact, you know, you start getting a little worried because you just know the slippery slope. And you know, I know you think there's a lot of competent people in government. You know, shout out to the three of them that are holding that.
Yeah, no, Hester Pierce would be God. I'd give anything to have Hester Pierce in there. I mean, I just want someone. I want someone who can listen. That's like one of the keys to being successful in life. Is, and I'm not doing a good job of it right now. I'm on this, like, just rambling at you guys. But a lot of my job, I feel like, is to listen and absorb information, and to, ask more questions to, again, further extract that sort of information. The problem is Gary Gensler is the fact that he has his face plastered all over the SEC's Twitter. I mean, it's a joke. And make no mistake, that guy's gunning for some, like, higher up position. The SEC is not the end of his career. He wants another notch up. So anyways, for whatever reason, it has nothing to do with Gary Gensler's age. It's not because he worked on Wall Street. It's just who he is as a person. And I think he's already demonstrated he doesn't deserve to be in this role. And I hope to God that someone like a Hester Pierce ends up there. I'm not expecting her also to make everything, rainbows and sunshine for the crypto industry. But I think she sees the opportunity. She's clearly spoken to understanding the technology that underpins crypto, understanding what's decentralized versus not. And I think that, yeah, she would be a wonderful candidate to replace him.
Yeah, I got to watch President Gensler 2028 coming in hot.
Oh, yeah.
You already know that's on his radar. Probably be like, oh, I'd look great in the Oval Office. Anyway, I kind of want to ask you one more question because I know we're kind of running out of time. Respectful of your day here. Ripple has kind of been battling the SEC for some time. Like, we haven't heard a final decision yet, but how do you kind of predict this ruling will unfold, and why do you kind of feel that way?
So, actually, I can just give you the short answer. I don't really keep up with the Ripple case, but I know that the Coinbase, this new case that Coinbase has brought forward, it won't impact it. And I feel like this Ripple case has been going on for so long. And as someone who's like, I'm not really involved in Ripple, and I have, like, my criticisms of it, but if you're in crypto, you should be rooting for Ripple to win that. Like, again, whether you can hate Ripple and say you think it's not a legitimate cryptocurrency, whatever your opinion is, I'm telling you that you don't want to see them lose, because it's another notch on the belt of someone like a Gary Gensler, who's not working in good faith to regulate crypto. He's just, honestly, I'm not quite sure what the guy wants to see, but I will speculate that he is in that age bracket where there's definitely some jealousy that I've learned of from family, friends, family members who are around that same generation. They look at crypto and they think, gosh, that's just fast money. This is an industry where I one or two people who got rich off of it very quickly, and so they think that folks don't deserve the wealth that has been created through crypto. And meanwhile, if you're a part of Gary Gensler's generation, I mean, you've lived through, like, the greatest economic boom of centuries. Like, you're just watching the stock market basically go up despite the ups and downs in between. But you're watching this insane sort of return over a lifetime. And again, I think there's somewhat of a there can be a jealousy there. So at the end of the day, I think it goes back to part of the problems that we have with someone like a Gary Gensler is, I think at his core, I think he's very jealous of the industry and the amount of attention and legitimacy that it's gotten in a very short amount of time. And for someone like him, even though I could probably dissect, all of the windfalls that he's enjoyed during his lifetime, these people maybe have worked a longer career and think that, again, crypto has come too fast, like its success is not hard earned. And so anyways, that's my concern again with Gary Gensler, and I think that's my concern for the Ripple case. Is I hope that they win it, because if they do win, it could do some good for other court cases involving crypto. But if they lose it, I just feel like it. I feel like that is we're going to see some sort of, no pun intended, we're going to see some ripple effects from that.
That's a perfect that might be the perfect place to end it, man. That was pretty great. We really do appreciate your time. You filled it a lot of alpha here. We had some really great questions. I just really appreciate you hanging out, giving us some information. Basic Degenomics is brought to you by Hashflow. So we're here every week. We're recording great episodes with people like DeFi Dad. So DeFi Dad, I appreciate your time, man. This is recorded so people can listen to this. Maybe even Gary will catch this and say, hey,
yeah,
maybe I'm the problem. Maybe we're gonna get that.
Yeah, no, great to talk, Alan. Thanks for having me, and Andrew, also great to see you as well. And hope everyone has a great weekend, and hopefully the markets are kind to us for the rest of this year. 2023 is looking more optimistic every day.
Fingers crossed. 2022 was a hell of a year, that's for sure. Andrew, any final words, sir?
No, I think just the thing to close out. I mean, DeFi Dad and I have now known each other for a while. Is I just appreciate seeing other parents in this industry, because one of the reasons I left big tech and joined was I really want to create a better future for my child and children around the world. So I appreciate the dad component of it all.
No, absolutely. Oh, and that's another part of, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about getting a full-time job in crypto, one thing you can do is go to jobs. So it's jobs.fourth, F-O-U-R-T-H, fourthrevolution.capital. Also, feel free to shoot me a direct message. Keep in mind, if I don't follow you already, it's possible that it'll get lost in the Twitter spam filter. So don't be afraid to also tag me on Twitter and say, hey, I sent you a DM. Say it's about a job. Sometimes I get like scammers saying, hey, I sent you a DM, and I'm not going to reply to it. But if you say, hey, I'm looking for a job, I definitely will be quick to check that, because I look to try to connect people and refer people all the time. I remember how hard it was for me to get my first job in crypto, and that's something I want to kind of pass forward in my own career now.
If you're listening to this, and you step away from the SEC, slide into DeFi Dad's DMs, maybe he can coordinate a future position for you. It's always out there helping people with DeFi Dad. That's why we like you.
That's right.
You enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much again for joining us. I'm sure we'll be talking soon, and we'll see you online, sir.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a great weekend. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and we will catch you next week. Peace out, y'all.